My name is Laura McCullough and I'm co-founder and CEO of Trommel. Welcome back to Sell More Parts Faster. In this course, we're going to be talking specifically through customer interviews. If you checked out our last video on the W3, you'll caught on that I emphasized a lot that you don't need to just be writing these ideas down, but you actually need to be validating them. And we can do some validation with data and historical sales information on our website, but it's not going to give you the why. That's why we've got to actually go out and talk to real people. Now, to get these started, you're going to need to find some people from your target market. Ideally, these are maybe historical customers, people who have bought your products before. If you've got people who have bought on your website, this gives you a great audience to get started. Now again, these should be happening in audio format. I highly discourage you from just doing this in a survey. If you're a new seller and have never sold a product before, then find people within your customer base because likely you are already targeting people from a community which you're part of. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, how am I actually going to get these customer interviews? And we recognize that this is a pretty intimidating process, but there's likely people who are already in your network, and that's where we're going to get started. So if you've got historical sales data, it's much easier to start there. You can take your historical email list and email your customers. Maybe you send them a brief survey, but again, your goal is to get at least a good batch of these people in the customer interviews. So go back and look at people who fit distinctively within your who that you define in your W3. You might want to talk to some people outside of it, but really our focus is to validate that that specific audience has the what and the why that we defined in our last exercise. So if you're ready to get started with your customer interviews, a great way to do this is to go to historical customers and be able to send out an email. Now, you really want to make sure you're biasing those who fit within the target market of the who that you define within your W3. And when you send out this email, offer them incentive to take 10-15 minutes out of their day, typically in the form of a credit on future products that they've purchased from you. And when they schedule these interviews, I highly recommend using something like Calendly or any other type of scheduling tool. Because if you're using one of those tools, they can grab time directly on your calendar. They can then use that to have a Google Meet, a Zoom link, anything that's automatically generated, so you can jump on that call ready to go with the questions we're going to discuss. So when you're getting started with these customer interviews, it can feel a little intimidating. So I highly recommend at least scripting some of the main questions beforehand. A great way to get started with these interviews, though, is by doing a little bit of an assessment on who. Right? We know that we went through the W3 model and we really defined some of those detailed attributes of the person who's in our target audience. So that way you very quickly can understand, how does this person fit? What's really exciting is it's probably going to give you some new details that you didn't think of. Maybe ways that you can get even more specific, or maybe even some things you can take off the list. So take the first few minutes and spend some time learning about this person. Who are they? What are their buying preferences? What are some of their psychographic details that you have about them? What do they expect from you as a business? What are they looking to improve in the future? What makes them have a 5-star versus a 1-star experience? Get some of the details from this person and let them speak. Be sure to make sure you give an open floor so they can really get into details of who they are before you move on to the next question. So once you've got a little bit of demographic information about this person, you understand a little bit who they are, the next thing you'll want to do is start asking them information about the historical experiences they've had. Some of this might have come up in the prior parts of the call. But what you really want to avoid in an effective customer interview is asking someone to speculate about what they might do in the future. How might you make a purchasing decision on a part? Why might you come back to a website? That's not helpful because humans are really bad about predicting future behavior. But what you can do is ask them historically. And some of it can be about your company, right? Try to understand why they came to you in the first place, what they were looking for, what particularly attracted them to your business. But it can also be something you can assess on other purchasing behaviors. What typically drives a purchase? How often do you explore? What content are you actually looking for on the internet? Understanding that really can help you start to validate the what. Because when you know what they're actually buying, whether they're buying a specific deal, whether they're buying a specific experience, they're buying specific content, all of these elements are what's going to help you validate or not the what in your W3. So one of the things you'll find if you're not careful is that you might start asking some leading questions. And this is something that is helpful to have a friend do this with you so they can kind of identify those. But a really great way to avoid doing this, again, in addition to asking about this historical experiences, is by leaving everything very open-ended. You do not want to ask something that has a yes or no answer because that completely lacks the context. So come to the conversation with an open mind. One of the really effective ways that you can validate what problem you're actually solving is by helping to understand what your customer has to say about that problem. So you can ask them historical information again. Always try to be looking back, not speculating to an ideal world. And asking them not just how they experienced that problem, but how important that problem is to them. And part of that can be validated by what are they doing today to solve that problem. So we understand this at Trammell, right? Any of our customers right now, if we're going to do a customer interview, we're going to understand how are you solving this problem today by the fact that you might be manually plugging in sales and logistical data into a spreadsheet and spending time analyzing in Excel. That's an existing behavior that we see from our early adopters and our customers. So what is your example, right? If someone is purchasing something as simple as seat covers from you, how are they solving that right now? Are they putting a towel over it? Are they buying a crappy solution? Are they buying something from your competitor for a reason that you feel you have significantly more value to create? And once they understand that, ask them why that solution is not ideal. When they purchased a product from you, what were they doing before that to solve that problem? Why was that good enough? And why did that trigger them to buy? And then ask why. And then ask why again. Dig into the depths of this information. We discussed in the last video that validating the why is one of the most challenging, but also the most important parts of building your company. So take the time to hear it, take the time to listen, and take the time to ask follow-up questions. So these customer interviews are never going to stop. Right now, as you're trying to understand and assess your W3, you're going to find yourself spending a lot of time in these conversations. And that's really important because it's the only way that you're going to validate if it's right. But just because you go through this exercise doesn't mean this is over. And you're going to find your own ways of how to do this effectively, how to recruit new conversations, and how to have those conversations. My recommendation is to schedule them out. Maybe you schedule time every 3-6 months to really make sure you're allocating resources to this, but it's not going to change the fact that every single time you have a customer conversation is an opportunity for customer discovery. Your sales team should be trained on this, your support team should be trained on this, and certainly your leadership team should be too. In the comments below, let us know how your experience has been in the past doing customer interviews or any specific questions that you have about conducting interviews at your company. If you're curious about what this looks like in practice, keep an eye out because we're going to be posting some real life examples on our page. In our next video, we're going to be talking through actually building and scaling a process, so make sure you like and subscribe below.